is 7
Not a
p.m.
problem. There's the chief.
And so let's call the meeting to order. Public comment. Is there any public? Yes.
Well, I have some public comment later concerning one of the items on the agenda. So should I wait for that?
If it's on the agenda, wait for it.
Okay.
Okay. Minutes of previous meetings. Any comments?
I have one change.
Okay.
Under item 3, towards the end of the first paragraph, Maggie noted that John Bradford had worked so hard. I had, if I didn't say it, I meant David Young and John Bradford.
Add number 3. All right, I marked it in here. So is there a motion?
Move to accept with change, with amendment.
Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Set date for Gale Road hearing. Does anybody have any ideas when we should have it?
Well, I just think this is, next time you set a date, I should follow through and hold the hearing when you say. We set a date, but it came and went. I fell asleep.
Yeah. I don't know. You got any preferences?
How much time has to be so you do your legal?
Well, there's only one abutter, and they're asleep at the switch.
It's not going to take long, is it?
No, the only thing I'd say is, let's not do it at the next meeting, because I'm on vacation next week, and so hitting that Monday,
Let's do it at the following
that'll please me.
meeting.
So that'll be the 18th?
I think so.
Which is,
Is there a motion?
Move to set the date for the Gale Road hearing for August 18th
Second.
at
At 7:30, something like that.
7:30. I guess, or 7:30.
Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. PVRS district budget. I guess this one's yours.
yeah, it's on there, because the Pioneer budget's in limbo, and I think that, I don't feel that we were dealt with in good faith by the, district. We were sandbagged. I mean, FY14 budget process, met with the school, they asked what we could handle, we told them, they said
Right.
okay, and we continued 5 or more years of merging recommended and requested by negotiation, and Warwick said that we could do a 4% increase in the school while everybody else was held to 2.5%. The Pioneer budget that was approved was in fact, by some calculation, a 2.5% increase, which ended up being a 3.9% increase for Warwick. Fast forward to this year, 3.9, 3.8. Fast forward to this year, same question, at a meeting, we did a better job attending meetings, asked what we could do, we said 2.5%, they said and we didn't hear anything until town meeting night when for the first time the select board and finance committee recommendations were voted down. So I just wanted the board to be aware that it would be possible when we have a special town meeting to revisit the appropriations, so that if something happens in the Northfield tie vote, which is a failure of an override to pass, or if Berniston has another meeting and increases their budget, we could reverse ourselves. And I think there's sufficient voter interest for, given the tax impact, that we'd have a much stronger turnout. Never been done in my memory, and I'm sure Martha's here to speak in that position.
Reverse
Yes, I
ourselves and put back 2.5.
But it's, you know, until the tax rate's set and the school has a set budget, we could revisit it, just as these other towns may be asked to go back and up it, we could go back and lower it if the voters so chose.
Yeah, I think you're right, we're being sandbagged, because originally I thought they accepted 2.5%.
Oh, wait a minute, okay,
Don't speak until you're recognized by the
Okay.
chair.
yes.
I think she would like to be recognized.
Can I be recognized?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, I just want to go over the procedure that was used. Were you all at the February 11th budget hearing? I don't remember any of the town official where people got to go and ask questions and so forth.
I'm sorry, we...
That's when the budget was presented the first time?
Yeah,
Okay. So I gather by saying sandbag, you mean you weren't kept informed of what was going on
No, we were,
when we
I
took the
mean
votes?
that they appeared to approve our 2.5% and then they backed out of it.
When, at what format did they approve your 2.5%?
it was a budget subcommittee meeting attended by the full select board, and it was much later than February. It was April. It was posted as a Warwick Select Board meeting, the Warwick Select Board and representatives from other towns, and the superintendent asked, you know, what can towns live with? Same question as in prior years, and that's what we said. But the this time was a different strategic or tactical response.
So you said that you could live with a 2.5?
We said we could-
Earlier I heard 4% from going to school committee meetings, but it was never 4%.
Not this year.
Okay, I was told that at a school committee meeting. Now, are you talking about, because we're getting budget and assessment mixed up, so I want to make sure. Because in some of the things that I've read, you're using the word budget associated with 9.6%. You're talking about assessment. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes, that we could.
Okay, because in the minutes of the May 27th select board meeting, there's a lot of reference to it. Young said that Bernerson had voted down a 9.6% increase in the PVRSD budget. So I was getting confused about what you meant by that. So you actually meant assessment.
Asking...
And Bernerston never voted on 9.6% because that wasn't their number. Do you understand what I'm saying? The budget increased 3.29%. The district budget.
Right.
And then I think it was
And then the assessment went up 9.6?
No, the assessment for Warwick, which is based on a whole series of other things than by the state, minimum contributions. You all understand the difference of what I'm talking about, right? Between budget
Well-
and assessment.
Yeah, your budget is for the whole unit, the district.
Yeah,
and-
the
and
district is the
assessment's
district
way
budget.
It's parted out to the constituents.
Right. But I mean, you all did get this hearing information, like 16 pages, where people went to the budget hearing on February 11th. You know, I'm just trying to
Nobody
figure out
from
where the
Warwick.
lack of communication here is. This wasn't sent to the select board?
No, it was sent to the town clerk and I intercept it. And we just don't go to these meetings because it's a waste of time. We went to a late meeting and answered the question, what can we live with for an increased assessment? And we said 2.5%. But the town people voted a larger assessment than 2.5% at the town meeting.
Well, yes, you had to put down there the number that was requested. That's because I made the amendment. At the town meeting on May 5th, I made the amendment that it had to be the amount actually requested.
Right.
You could have voted It could have been voted down, it wasn't voted down.
Right, and the select board are here tonight because they could call a special town meeting and revisit the matter and get the amount lowered. Get the amount that voted.
So in other words, you're saying, even though this was voted on legally, this amount was voted on
Well,
at the
Berniston,
May 5th town meeting? I'm not talking about
what's the strategy
Berniston.
for dealing with Berniston and Northfield at this point? Gonna go back to them and try to vote, get them to vote what they wouldn't approve?
Wait a minute. Okay, let's start from scratch, okay? Berniston, I'm not even talking about Berniston. I don't live in Berniston, I'm talking about Warwick.
We're concerned with our
Leiden
assessment.
has already passed it. Leiden has passed theirs. Berniston has already rejected theirs, okay? Northfield is having a recount tomorrow, no, Thursday at 1 p.m. because it was a tie. Because Northfield actually voted the full amount, but it didn't pass in the Proposition 2.5. The vote that they took, you read that, you know that obviously, it was 262 to 262 in Northfield. So they're gonna have a recount, because they had enough signatures on a petition to have a recount. That's taking place Thursday at 1 p.m. Well, it could go either way, couldn't it? It could pass, in which case 3 towns will have passed it, and it's a done deal, or it
No.
could lose.
Not if Warwick calls a special town meeting to revisit it.
I don't
That's what this
understand.
item is here.
Yes, I know it is, but what I'm asking is how, so that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do? When the town has already voted on it, you're going to re-vote so that you can defeat it? I don't know, I guess I don't understand.
Well, what's the district's attorney
What?
say?
So what is it, so the district, so you're going to call a special town meeting so that this can come up for a vote again, the assessment, not the budget. Because the budget has to come down if it loses.
The budget is,
Well, you were talking about the budget. I mean, in the minutes of May 27th, you were talking about the budget and how everybody voted on 9.7%. They didn't. That was Warwick's figure, first of all. That wasn't Berniston's, Leiden's, or North. So I think it's important to make that distinction, so I'm just making that distinction. But the second thing I'm saying is, it feels like it's not right to me to have a town meeting, legal, authorized vote, and then say, well, we're going to vote again.
well, you know, some of us, the reason it's on the agenda is some of us, me, feel like we were sandbagged. We were told, we were asked by the district, what can we handle for an assessment? We said 2.5%. They said, and then did a great job turning up school constituents and passed it over the objections of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. I think the chance of, personally, of an override changing the or a recount changing the outcome, given that all but about 20 votes were machine counted, the chance that they would have miscounted 20 provisional or absentee
know that.
ballots is pretty low.
Yeah, Northfield knows that.
So that probably Warwick's action is unnecessary and will obtain the lower assessment by the action of the Northfield.
Well, Northfield has the option also of having a revote when it's a tie.
Just like Warwick has the option of a revote. Anyway, I brought it up for the selectmen's consideration.
All right, I just
Now you
wanted to say
remember-
what I feel about it personally as far as the democratic process. I have a lot of trouble with that. Having a special town meeting to vote again to get the result you want when it was there. I mean, you had the figures over and over again. We voted May 27th. We lowered it we lowered the budget, not the assessment, the budget, $225,000. Voted again in April. So we're doing everything we can to keep it as low as we want. We're not, I don't think there was any intention of anybody sandbagging it. I don't know, you know, I'm not on the select board, so.
First time in 6 years that anybody stood up and challenged the mediated request recommended number, which for the past 6 years has been worked out in advance of town meeting so that departmental requests and the select board and finance committee recommendations were the same thing. We didn't turn the stone over when assumed that we were going to get the same treatment as the prior year when we said how much we could stand for an assessment.
Generally, on the warrant of the town meeting, both figures appear. People had a chance to vote it down. It was 46 to 30. I mean, it just seems to me you're saying to people, well, we don't really care what you voted, we're going to vote again and get the read.
Well, that's one thing.
I mean, the reason, this has no comparison with the situation in Northfield, by the way. Absolutely none. Because the situation in Northfield was a tie. So if it's still a tie, when you have a tie by state statute, you can have a revote.
When you have
That's
an
an
override that
entirely
loses,
different
you can have,
situation.
and I was a select board member when we had 3 overrides to try and pass a school, and 2 overrides to try and pass a budget. It was 1988, 9, sometime around there, when the economy was coming apart at the seams. An override can fail, and the select board can bring it up again, and again, and again.
Well,
Well, I've just stated how I feel.
sandbagging was made known to the town meeting the first time. If yes, do we really get to override that? And if no, why not?
I'm not tracking it. Well, did anybody, like, for instance, me, stand up and say, hey, they sandbagged us?
Yeah.
No. No, and I know they're entirely within their right to request that the town vote their request. It doesn't have to be. At one point, we believed that if an amount appeared on a warrant, you could not exceed it at town meeting. It's not true. So, having that clarification, we went with the recommendation. The school was entirely within its rights to ask the larger number be moved. Warwick, like Berniston, did not offer that larger number. There's nothing wrong with it, pro forma. But, no. And, you know,
And the basis for the reconsideration is Northfield's?
basis for the reconsideration is if Northfield passes this, we're going to be stuck with a new basis for a school budget that's going to cause, in my view, is going to cause taxpayer revolt every year hereafter.
Well, you know, I don't see we really need an excuse for asking for a reconsideration.
But I think it should be considered. I'm not necessarily saying it should happen, but I think it should be considered. And if Northfield and Berniston don't fund this unaffordable budget, it would be unnecessary. But it would be a question for this board. I mean, we do have plans for a special town meeting coming up for other matters. So it's on here for discussion. I wasn't looking for a decision.
Could I be recognized for another question? So that if you do decide to put this on the special town meeting warrant, since the assessment was part of the entire town budget, does that mean everybody at that meeting has to go through it again to change the total, or are you just taking this one section out? Or are people going to have a chance to vote on the policeman, or the this, or the that? Do you see what I'm saying? Or are you going to take this section out of Pioneer and treat that in a special way?
That was my intention.
I don't see why we can't.
I guess I'm mystified about the lack of communication, because I guess I need to start coming to select board meetings, keep you informed. Apparently you're not getting all of these papers sent by the district. You'll be getting tomorrow a newly certified figures that we voted on July 17th, last Thursday, lowering the assessment somewhat, but certainly not to where you want it to be, but it's now gone down to 8.67%, I think, but don't quote me on that figure because I'm not sure. But it has gone down somewhat. We're trying to get it as low as we can without laying off too many teachers and paraprofessionals. Because that's the only choice. There's nothing else, nowhere else we can cut.
Could I ask a question?
Well, David, what do you expect will happen if we lower it?
If we
If we,
lower our appropriation,
yeah,
it becomes if Bernstein holds the line, it becomes the new lower common denominator, and I expect that the result will be significant layoffs at the school, which was essentially either massive increases in assessments to the town, massive needs for additional revenue were required when they signed the new contracts. New unionized contracts were signed last year, and they set this in motion, that established a new basis. And what I read in the newspaper was if the Bernstein appropriation passed, something like 40 layoffs would be required at the school. Is that about accurate, Martha?
That's about right. Well, she's already sent out, see if I have that figure. I believe it's 25 teachers and 20 paraprofessionals have already been laid off, and hoping to hire some of them back.
our
Depending on how this all comes out.
percentage could be covered easily by the computer expense, right?
Well, that's a borrowing article under their authority to spend for capital. It certainly, that whole process, in my mind, contributes to the poisoning of the well here. I mean, we were ignored, and they hired a educational collaborative who came in and said that all our ideas were worth thinking about, but none of them was worth implementing. And so we have this non-existent 5-year plan, and we're going to spend $400,000 out the gate and $150,000 to $200,000 every year thereafter to support the capital side of technology in terms of computers, servers, switches, wire lines, wireless, peripherals. But when you boil it out to 480 computers, it's a capital expenditure of $500 per year per workstation in the system. It's just phenomenal, but it wasn't good enough to buy Windows 7 computers that were 3 years old and replace them every 3 or 4 years. We have to have Windows 8, which everybody's running from. They did find that their budgetary numbers of $740 and $760 per computer were high, and I have faith that they will exercise restraint, but they are going toward the bleeding edge of Windows 8, and we're looking at annual expenditures of at minimum $150,000 for capital, and that whole inability to be heard, process, then they do what they want to do.
Well, isn't
Right
that maybe I'm missing something, but isn't that a better rationale for reconsidering the percentage we agreed to?
That's
Because
the capital item, and our authority was only to disapprove within, was it 30 days, 60 days, whatever the window was. That ship has sailed. That capital borrowing is done. Our authority, nobody very successfully got their head around this in the district, but the district discovered that it's absolutely lawful for the school committee to vote to incur debt on behalf of the member towns
I get it.
behalf of the district. And the only thing the towns can do is disavow it by a town meeting vote within a 60-day window from the date they voted. And we said, we don't want to jam them up. They need technology. All these old computers and such, we need something. Let's just do it right. We agreed to a process. We got chewed up in it. I don't like the outcome. A lot of people don't like the outcome. And we basically signed up for 150, not Warwick. Warwick's share would be 10% because of our size of the district. But the district is signed up for $150,000 to $200,000 a year, every year, for additional capital
Right.
expenditure. So
But it's a different issue and we can't put the two together, is what you're saying.
right.
Okay.
I'm saying if we don't inject something at this point, in terms of the spending, that becomes the basis, and the revolution, taxpayer revolution starts next year, when people get their tax bills from this year.
Okay. Well, when do we run out of time to raise that issue? Or have we?
I don't know, at this point, the district is operating under the authority of a letter from the Department of Revenue that says they can spend 1/12 of last year's budget each month until they have a budget. They can probably, Rosa, they've got our certified vote, right? I think Jeanette took care of.
She was town clerk for that meeting, so I haven't done
So,
any of the
I think
stuff yet.
the district,
Sure.
I have a question for you. What percentage of the increase goes to pay raises?
I can look it up. I was on the negotiation committee and I can assure you, we did not
while she's
away
looking
the
it up, I
script.
can tell you that one thing is that they have these things called step increases, and those are not seen as pay raises. Those are merit-based pay increases that I look at as
What
pay
I'm trying to
increases.
get is a whole altogether.
Well, that's not, if Martha sticks with the program, she's gonna tell you about the percentage increase applied to wages in terms of what they consider an increase and not. Warwick doesn't have steps. What did Warwick's employees get this year? 1.5%, 2%, 1.5%? But if we had steps, I might be at level 5, and then I've been here this many years, and I go to level 6, and I get a pay bump. The school does not consider that a pay increase. It's not a pay increase.
Well, the teachers do not consider it a pay increase.
Okay.
For 3 years, they did not get a pay increase. That's why we had to meet 15 times in negotiations this year.
The first,
Because their steps, teachers are on a whole different thing. It has nothing to do with the school committee setting it. This was set by the union, teachers' union.
you don't have
To
numbers
set
from
the
the union?
steps. What do you mean we don't
The
have
school committee doesn't get a number?
a number for what?
Their pay increase. Total, not just part and parcel, I mean, the whole thing.
The only thing you could really
We have
do
a
is-
3-year contract and
One
I
at a
cannot
time.
give you the exact figure of what it went up. I think it was 2%, 2%, and then maybe 2.5%. I'm sorry I don't have that figure in front of me because I didn't come here to talk
But that
about
doesn't count
negotiations.
the other wages.
But most of the,
That's what I'm trying to find out, Martha,
is how much of the budget, how much of the school budget is in teachers'
is
raises?
with the step, like David was talking about. How much does that figure? into
Well,
the
I mean, I can look through and find it for you. That was nothing that could be up or down. That was already set in negotiations.
That's not up for discussion.
And
It's not-
I have
it's
another-
not-
No, I
And
realize
it
it's
goes
not
down
up
and
for
voted.
negotiation, but there must be a number somewhere. I mean, for a budget to jump like that is,
How much did the budget jump? What
The
is
budget
your,
was 3.9. What was the
Where'd it
initial
go?
assessment for Warwick?
the
Before
budget
it
is
was-
3.29. A lot of people think the budget went up 9.6. That's the
That's
point
what
I'm
we were
trying to
told.
make. Were you thinking the budget went up 9.6?
Yeah. 'Cause that's what
See,
you
this
said.
is the problem.
Now, did you say 3.9 or 3.29?
3.29.
Well, I want to make sure I get it right in the minutes, and I had 3.9, because that's what I heard the first time, so. This is the whole district budget.
Yes.
When
See,
we
the
voted,
district budget is an
Yeah.
entirely different thing than the assessment.
and when the annual town meeting voted Warwick's assessment, what was the increase at that time? You mentioned it's now been reduced a bit. It could be, everybody uses the word budget when they talk here, it could have been, I was supposed to be writing assessment budget.
The increase in the assessment was $49,662 at the time of the town meeting.
I got Patricia Lemon on speakerphone.
262?
Sorry, I'm putting the phone down for a second so I can pull up the agenda.
49,662.
It seems odd to me that they mention they want computers and they want this and that. They never mention
At
the pay
7:30.
raises. I mean,
Well,
anybody in
raises
town
were
that gets a pay
decided
raise
in
from the
negotiations.
town.
It wasn't anything that,
That's what you're there for.
I mean, I wasn't on the budget subcommittee.
No, I'm not blaming you, I'm just
No, I
trying to
know,
come
I'm
up with
just
the
trying to
numbers.
explain.
The pay raises are negotiated between the union and
The
the school
union and the
district.
school committee, they're all decided before that budget. There's no discretionary.
So if they want, just for numbers, say they want a 50% increase, then the school committee has to come up with that money to pay that increase, correct?
Well,
I mean,
if the
just-
school committee,
just for
the
using numbers.
negotiation subcommittee actually decided on that. This is how it's set up. Since nobody seems to have looked at this thing on the hearing, you have the proposed budget, okay. The operating budget. District administration. Bernardston, I mean, this goes on for
These
weeks and weeks and
covers
weeks.
the district administration.
Pearl Roads Elementary in Leiden,
What you're saying is
Northfield,
something that the
I
secretary
understand that we
cannot
have these
follow.
Warwick, right.
Hold on, the two of you. What you're pointing out to John is something that the secretary can't follow, so
Yeah.
unless she can put it into the minutes, I don't
Okay,
want you.
but I'm not going to discuss that any further because there's too many numbers to try to deal with.
The other thing is that we're probably not going to make a decision tonight, so
Okay,
we should probably hold off on this kind of detail.
okay. And it's not really appropriate for me to get into all this detail now because you people on the select board all have access to this
Right.
and have had it or should have had it in your hands since February. But I will say one more thing. I would encourage the town officials to come to the budget hearing because every town except Warwick had people there asking questions, listening to each school's budget be explained. It's your chance. You know, I was kind of disappointed that nobody from Warwick was there. Every other
Nobody in Warwick,
town had finance committee representative and a select board representative. So just keep that in mind for next year too, because it is a chance to hear every principal and every district, everybody who's worked on their own individual budget and the total budget, and the superintendent of schools and the budget subcommittee to explain, and that's a good time to ask questions.
Martha,
And I was the only person from Warwick there.
Martha,
Understood.
You hear me?
Oh,
Patricia?
yes.
when was that meeting held?
Pardon me?
When was that meeting?
February
held?
11th. It's called Public Hearing, Proposed Operating and Capital Budgets.
And when was it?
Where was it? At Pioneer? February 11th.
I see. I don't remember receiving notification.
I know it's sent out to all the town administrators, so you should have gotten it. And
I know I should have, but there was a lot of stuff we should have gotten that we didn't.
It consists of the entire budget plus the technology plan at the end.
Okay.
Patricia? What are you saying?
She didn't get.
She didn't get this budget. She didn't get the public hearing
None of us did.
packet.
No, none of us did.
So I felt a little lonely being the only person from Warwick there. I mean, we all need to work together. And it's a really good time to ask questions. Bernardston, Lynden, and Northfield all had finance committee people, select board people. And I don't think you can just assume that, well, nothing's going to happen. Because things do happen at these meetings.
Well, I think we need to see it and then get back to this.
This is always in February, every single year. And of course, it changes a lot after this because we don't even have the Commonwealth budget yet. We don't have a lot of the figures we need, but it's the preliminary budget and it shows you where the increases are. And if the special education director has a lot of increase, it's her chance to explain why. She didn't. But it's a chance to go through it. You know, we all sit up in front and everybody's out there and they can ask any kind of question they want, so.
Martha,
Yes?
were you aware of the technology committee meetings?
I was aware of them, yes. Anybody could have gone to
I
those.
don't believe there were any school committee members there.
Good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. There were no school committee members there.
No, there wasn't a
Okay.
quorum.
Well, I feel that the administration of the school behaved irresponsibly and rudely toward us because we spent a lot of time and effort and thought in making suggestions to them, and they just ignored the whole thing.
Regarding technology specifically you're speaking of?
Specifically, yes. They also ignored our input about capital expenses.
So you're speaking of the administration of the school district?
Yeah.
All right, I think that's something we need to all keep in mind and work for better communication and
It's not just
I am taking your
communication,
point.
it's listening and paying attention.
I just don't remember there being this. I've been on the school committee for 4 years and it seems like things have deteriorated as far as the relationship goes. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. Not that I can necessarily do anything about it, but just so I'm aware of it.
Well, I think you
Yeah.
need to ask for minutes of that meeting if in fact there were any, which I've never seen if there are.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I think you need to ask for the minutes of that meeting. That is assuming they took any, which I'm not convinced they did. Was that clear?
I don't know if it was included in the school committee meeting. I don't know. I haven't been on that.
Yeah.
I know almost zero about technology, so I was not inclined to get involved in the discussion of the details.
I understand. The town of Warwick in general, though, has a lot of people who are pretty sophisticated about technology. And pretty much all of them were there. And everything that we said was ignored completely. And the motion at the town meeting was to approve it, assuming they complied with our requirements, which they did not. They did vaguely in the sense that they hired an outside consultant, but they pretty much told the outside consultant what they wanted to hear, I gather.
Patricia, David has pointed out that the issue of technology is a different issue technically from the budget because it's a borrowing issue rather than a budget issue.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing what you started to say.
In any event, I think we need to cut this off in that we're not going to make a decision tonight. All of this is useful information, but that's what it is. I think we need to revisit it when.
I think you're right. The sooner the better.
2 weeks.
I'm sorry, Patricia?
I said the sooner the better.
June's next meeting.
Right. I think that's a good idea.
Okay?
So we'll put it on the agenda, probably for decision at the next meeting.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Patricia.
Sure, thank you.
She's gonna stay in the meeting.
Is there anything else on this? I don't think there is. Moving on to Athol Road one-way signage.
But whoever is speaking, get the speaker in front of them.
I'm sorry, Patricia, what?
She can't
But
hear you.
whoever is speaking, put the speaker in front of them so I can hear better.
Can you hear all right now?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, I'm saying we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is Athol Road one-way signage. And dropping the school for the minute to come back to it next meeting.
Yeah, good
Can I have a
idea.
talking stick?
I'm sorry? Yeah.
This will be, we'll pass this on as the talking stick. Do I have the floor?
Good.
I don't want you to get the idea that I spend a lot of time looking out my window. It's a beautiful view. A day doesn't go by without me seeing at least one vehicle go the wrong way up this one-way street and make a potentially lethal turn onto 78.
I read what you had to say in your report, and I perfectly understand it. My question is, how much would it cost us to put in any of the proposals?
Well, my tongue-in-cheek proposal was to put the drive-in movie theater one-way spikes.
Yeah,
Probably not advisable. What makes sense to me is some of those red wrong way turnaround signs, a couple of those. Well, but what happens is people who are not familiar stop and they look lovingly at our signpost and they see an arrow that says that Vernon is 9 miles and would have them going over the Snell Bridge, and that you know are supposed to travel the wrong way up the one-way street, so they don't notice the red signs. I'm thinking some perhaps placed between the Historical Society and the Town Hall, facing what is the wrong direction, say wrong way, go back. And then what I also like to see is a big white arrow painted on the pavement that shows that traffic is,
going the other direction.
yeah. And we could save the drive-in movie spikes for future. The solution I really like best is Jersey barriers, but then we move the point of intersection for serious accidents from Athol Road and Orange Road to Athol Road and Hotel Road, which
Which is not an improvement.
yeah, there's, well, probably somewhat slower collisions and less bloody, but it'll still be a horror show. So to try and close the road, but that's long been my proposal, is just make this a cul-de-sac. But then we've got to deal with traffic down here, and we're nowhere ready to get that sorted out. So I'm looking for a directive to the highway department to put up some signs and paint. And then the other thing that has been brought up in this context are some angled parking spaces out in front of the inn, because when we get people from out of town, if they're the first ones here, they don't know how the parking protocol is, and we lose half our parking places in the village center.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. Okay?
Okay.
I'd like to move that we ask the highway department to look into the extent of each of David's suggested and report back to us as soon as possible.
Do we have any deadline for this rather than as soon as possible?
I would say by the next meeting, which would be
August 4th.
August.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Move, second.
So you're changing it to the next meeting rather than as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to hear from Chief.
I think until we have more information, we really can't discuss it.
But I'd just like input from the chief, from traffic up in this. Do you have any comments on,
I see the same thing David sees, you know.
So you have
That
any-
is a very dangerous road. I mean, why can't, instead of making a motion and going through all that, why don't you just have David ask Larry?
Can we have a vote?
She doesn't know what you're talking.
You probably
Patricia,
have-
rather,
Patricia,
probably
do
have
you
the answer by
understand
Monday.
what the police chief said?
No, I didn't.
He said basically, if I can paraphrase, he agrees with David.
well, and says, let's take action rather than study it. Let's direct the highway department to put in signage and
You could have an answer what it'll cost by Wednesday, maybe by tomorrow. Just ask him, he'll tell you what it costs to buy the sign, put it in, and that's it. You could have it done by Wednesday.
I'm perfectly willing to withdraw my motion if you want to make another one, Don.
no,
I want to just say by consensus, we've decided that we're going to take steps.
yeah, by consensus, we've agreed to direct the highway superintendent to get signage and put in the markings for parking spaces in front of the inn and library.
And I think not worry about the expense because it's not going to be that great.
Okay, I will second that.
You will check into that?
She would second it. It's not a motion.
It's not a motion. Tell her it's not a motion.
I thought it was a motion.
No, just a consensus.
Uh,
Are you still doing the arrow?
So we're dropping the motion and we're substituting a consensus for the motion.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Okay, I think we've got a consensus.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yay. Anything else on the signage?
No.
No.
I think so.
I'd just like to comment, I've never understood why we have a one-way in the first place, but given that we do,
Because
let's
back in
make
the
it clear.
50s, they made it a one-way because so many people got killed right there.
Could you have a blind Joe over there?
Yeah.
Next item, vote to close Athol Road in front of Town Hall on Saturday, the
August 26th.
26th.
Yep.
26.
26th, yeah.
It's 23rd.
That's easy.
That's
to
what
the
the date is?
motion.
So moved.
So it's the 23rd, Rosa says the,
And there's a
Yeah,
motion
well,
and
it's the 23rd
second
or 24th.
to close Athol Road in front of the Town Hall on Saturday, August 26th. Any other discussion?
Did we have a second?
Yes, you have the second.
I made the motion.
everybody understands Rosa's correction, I got the date wrong, it's the 23rd is the
Got
Saturday.
it.
23rd.
In front of Town Hall, this is just for the 23rd, not the 24th.
So there's a motion from Dawn and a second from Patricia, right?
That's right.
Okay, any other discussion?
No.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Report on WCS roof project.
You have a question, Nick?
I have a question, yes.
Did your consensus include painting the parking line spots as well? Because I only heard signage.
No, I said parking line.
Aren't there signs up there?
No, they're parking.
No. Over here.
Spaces.
On the
why?
one street,
Parking
there
lots.
used
So
to be
in the
signage.
consensus-
This is in front of
in the
it.
consensus, it
I don't give a
included
shit about front.
parking spaces
Well,
and the
and-
I think we made a
and the
decision,
arrow.
so.
Yeah, the
But I'm
consensus.
just saying,
So, yeah.
So, in
Whatever.
conclusion on the consensus.
I'm sorry, there are too many people
Do
talking.
you understand the consensus to include line painting for parking over by the inn?
I did.
Very well.
It's
We
in the
have-
minutes, I think.
We have a
Okay.
consensus.
As well as the arrow on the street.
If can. That may have to wait, we'll see.
The consensus includes we're not going to put the nails in the road.
That did it, yes, we're not gonna do the.
I didn't put
Do
that.
the high street.
I didn't put
Okay,
that.
report on WCS roof project.
All right, so, weather permitting, that project starts Monday. The contractor intends to put about 10 guys on it, put them up in hotels locally. I've hired Bill Lyman to be the basic site supervisor. He'll be doing stuff like painting and other things around the school, so he just won't be watching, but we do want to have eyes on what's going on. I'm quite confident that the contractor's good. At this point, I'm negotiating with the Building and Energy Committee Chair on exactly what kind of tape we're going to use on the OSB and whether a synthetic roof underlayment between the existing deck and the foam board we're going to add to the deck. We're getting down to some very particulars. And we've got UMass Extension Service involved. We'll be adding R 18.6 in insulation to the gym roof, foaming the holes, taping the seams, gluing and screwing half-inch plywood to the oriented strand board that's on there. It's a poor surface to adhere to, and this way we can use deck screws and really bite into them by making a 1-inch composite wood glued up deck. We'll be fixing the treatment at the eaves. The existing panel, which I think maybe Janice brought for the board once, includes oriented strand board, 6 inches of blue foam, and 1.5 inches of acoustic material, which we fondly refer to as shredded wheat. The wind blows through it. At the eaves, it sits on the top of the wall, and there's air passing through it, so that's going to have to be treated. I don't get the price for the change order till tomorrow, but things are coming in very well. Hampshire Lumber was low bidder. We were able to buy shingles for $10 a square, less than we bought the same shingles for 4 years ago. That's unusual in petroleum-based products. Got a great deal through the solid waste district on demolition. We will be pulling all the old roof off and disposing of it. Waste Management's not charging us for a drop fee for bringing the containers up here, and they're not charging us box rental. So we're just paying their bid rate for disposal costs and the trucking cost. Materials arrive Thursday, and I probably told you more than you need to know or care, but project's in full gear and on budget.
I thought we weren't pulling.
We're looking at not doing so, but the architect, the builder, everybody hated it, and then when I was able to get the, basically cut the disposal costs in half over my estimate, it just seemed like a no-brainer to do it full Cadillac, do it right. Not that I think a shingle warranty is worth anything, especially years out, but you know, you're better off. And in fact, over shingling was not according to their warranty, was not a problem. But could be, you know, when they look back and say, why did the roof fail?
Okay,
So that's the story on the roof project.
all right.
And I'll be on vacation for the start of it, and Bill will be here, and I'll be on the other end of my cell phone if you need to call.
I think that's all we need on that one. Surplus declaration of old
Sanderberg.
Sanderbug.
Yes, so,
I move that we declare the oil sander body surplus.
Is there a second?
Okay, are we on the standard body?
yeah, Don moved that we declare it surplus.
On second?
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see, Seaboard. Revised contract.
You don't have that before you. I've got that contract before our town council for review. Seaboard, if you recall, are the guys that we are being net meter host in return for 1.5 cent a kilowatt hour, potential 50,000-60,000 a year. They did not bring the project, which is under construction, in under the 2% allocation to municipal that the utilities were laboring under. However, they're continuing to construct, and the legislature has enacted an additional requirement on the electric utilities to buy more solar, and so we're back in the game. I was a little alarmed when the contract came through because it said it had been reviewed by Copeland and Page, please sign here. Well, the previous contract that had been reviewed by Copeland and Page, and it said that they were all the contracts for Tolland, for New Salem, for Warwick, and Wendell were all the same. Well, our attorney discovered in the previous contract that had been vetted by Copeland and Page that the town was required to buy any power that the developer couldn't sell. That's not a good thing. But apparently they had no intention of foisting that on us and had removed it from the contracts with the other towns once we pointed it out. But at any rate, I didn't want the board signing. It basically restarts the clock. They should, by the terms of the original contract, they should be paying us by now, but the project's not online. This gives them another go at it. It still has us with the ability to buy any power we want for 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a pretty good deal, and probably a better deal in the future, although we're not exercising that option because we've got another supplier under contract.
When are you expecting to get a reply back from town council?
Maybe by next meeting.
Uh-huh.
I just finally was able to scan it and get it to him late last week, so give him a little time.
Could you send me a copy of that scan?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Yeah, read it with special attention for whether there's that landmine. If we have to buy any power they can't sell, because we don't need $1 million worth of power a year.
No, we don't.
But I didn't find it. Okay, I'll do that.
I think it's correct, we should vote it as quickly as possible because the timing is everything on these.
Yeah. Okay, that'll be on the next agenda.
What do we have for correspondence?
The main thing we have is a matter that actually has now resolved itself, but the landowner asked us that the letter be placed in the selectmen's folder, so a property boundary iron pipe was dug up by our highway department when they were doing that drainage work along Winchester Road. They moved a hell of a lot of poison ivy someplace else from the side of the road, and lots of dirt, and there's room for water to drain. So at any rate, this fellow's property stake was removed. Larry went down there with a metal detector and found part of the stake in the ground, so was able to reestablish the point. And we don't have to have an argument about who gets to pay for a new survey to reestablish the point. And I decided to stop arguing about where the road right-of-way is and the road and the touching on his land, etc. Everything's good.
Is there any dispute as to where he relocated?
Larry found it, a remnant of it in the ground at that spot. So that spot has been reestablished. There's
no dispute that he's right about that.
over the location, right?
Okay, I guess that means we don't need to do anything. Where missing here, your report and, members' reports,
Yes, we are.
but I assume we're doing those.
I have a report.
Do we have any new or other items?
Patricia, I left off coordinator report and selectman reports, and
Come
so
first.
we're doing that, we're doing selectman reports first.
Okay. Well, I have no report.
But Dawn has a report, and it is,
I attended the FERCog meeting last Thursday, and
Would you put the finger in front of you?
I attended the FERCog meeting last Thursday, and some of the highlights are as follows. We're not a member of the Hampshire COG, are we?
No, we participate in a number of their services, but we're
Well,
not Hampshire Town.
It came to FERCog's attention that the administrative fee for the program is more than double the typical fee. Not only that, but HCOG's intent was to use additional funding to first pay back its reserve for legal fees and other costs expended related to getting aggregate approval, and then for expansion of HCOG programming and administration. So I'm glad we didn't get into that, because
We're participating in the aggregation project. We are participating in the aggregation project. We are participating in their health insurance pool, which is more economical than anything else in the state. But those are sort of, fee-for-service things, where I would think that in order to be a HCOG member, you need to be in Hampshire County.
no, this was a cooperative program.
Well, we are participating in the electrical cooperative, but I've never seen a bill.
Okay. All right, the Franklin County Emergency Communication System, FCECS, has been experiencing major problems over the past few months that are being worked on diligently and should be fixed by the end of July, if not sooner. They have dismissed 2 contractors and have now come down to executing an emergency contract with the radio system manager, Bruce Bellevue, of Bellevue Communications, to put the system back together by readjusting settings as well as timing, power, and audio levels. And they still haven't figured out what caused the problem. The FERCog has been asked by the Massachusetts Technology Corporation, parent of the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, to assist with the last mile broadband planning, including an IT bond is for $50 million for the last mile broadband expansion. And details of this engagement are being finalized. I guess you don't need to know everything. They have FERCog has a new website, www.fercog.org, and there's all kinds of good stuff on there. We had a speaker on the opioid task force, and FERCog has gotten actively engaged in this.
John,
Yes.
my right hand is falling asleep, so I'm going to put the phone down. But I vote for
Her hand's falling asleep.
that we discontinue the meeting when you're done with your report.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
And there's a proposed gas pipeline meeting on July 24th from 6 to 8 in the Franklin, at Greenfield Community College. And lastly, I was voted vice chair of FERCog's executive.
congratulations.
Oh, FERCog what? Executive.
That's all you had to say.
Executive committee, is that?
Jeez, all that other
Executive
stuff.
committee,
She's an executive of the executive committee.
Anything else? Patricia? We've already heard from
she
you.
She
said,
hung up,
She's not,
she hung up on that.
Is that your operator?
She left at 8:03.
She didn't like my report.
I guess she doesn't have a report.
She said her right hand fell asleep.
Yeah, that was her report.
Of course, her left hand, she can't help it.
Move to adjourn.
Just,
I'll
Oh, wait a
second
minute,
that.
we have no other items,
All right, it's coordinator report too.
and we have the coordinator's report.
I'm gonna be away next week. And next Thursday is when the agenda needs to be posted. I'll work on it through Friday, and what I propose is I hand it off to Rosa. And Rosa, you work with Nick to finalize it, so next week,
Yeah, because town clerk hours Thursday from 6 to 8, it has to be posted that Thursday by 7
by
anyway,
7,
so-
exactly. Okay, so I'll get it up to a point and pass it on to Rosa and to work on getting it posted. You need to give a copy of it to the webmaster of the agenda. And I always email it to the press, and I'll give you those contacts.
I have two new and other items.
If my email's working, I can't tell.
Number one is easy. I hate to say that it was unanticipated that things would get completely turned around at the last hearing on Wagon Wheel. And I think congratulations is in order to David and to our new attorney, that it was turned around. I think we should send a thank you note to the new attorney so as to get off on the right track with him, which maybe David you could draft and send out on behalf of the board.
Sure, I would say that it's a little premature. We have the building inspector's order that the Wagon Wheel Campground cease operating as a mobile home park was upheld, and it was upheld unanimously. And I would just note that because all it had to be was, in order to overturn zoning enforcement agent's order, the decision needs to be unanimous to overturn it. So even if one member, and that's what I was hoping for, we're clearly going to be in Superior Court next on this.
So
Okay.
ZBA voted unanimously to uphold.
The building inspector's order. And that's where we stand, and we were informed by the Wagon Wheel Council that they would be appealing.
Well, if you think it's premature to
So that would
thank
be
our new
appeal
lawyer,
Well, the reason I say it's premature is that the ZBA voted unanimously that they're not a mobile home park, as a matter of fact, but that in terms of use, they were acting like one and upheld the order to cease. They haven't issued that order until the ZBA works with the attorney to make sure that their findings of fact and that their ruling passed legal muster. So I don't believe
Right.
that it's been, they're not done working together on this phase of it.
well, I'm ready to thank you.
Okay.
And you, Don, I trust also.
Okay.
Okay.
I will extend the board's gratitude.
Um,
And I can tell you that the ZBA chair was very pleased with their initial interactions with our new council on this.
Good. That was item number one, and item number two, I think you and I agreed could get onto.
Yeah, and it's on I think this one.
The ruling for this
Okay.
hearing is not yet
It
final.
has not been issued.
Okay, yeah, because I don't have anything in time for.
The other
Zoning
item,
enforcement strategy.
right, the other item is that I would like to see it the policy of the board that the building inspector will do a tour of the town once every 6 months to check into anything that looks suspicious in terms of violation of the
You're looking to get.
zoning bylaws or failure to seek a permit for something that needs to be signed, and that he will prepare a report to the board on, the commission on what he found. David, I think you said that was a good idea.
Yeah, I think we ought to get some legal advice in terms of the building inspector's rights to enter onto people's properties. I just don't know. I know that the tradition is to respond to complaints, and basically to respond to complaints that that the person making the complaint has enough starch to actually sign a name to, as opposed to, you know, make an anonymous claim, my neighbor's doing such and such click. So I would suggest, as a first step, that we get the building inspector in here and discuss this with him, and he's probably, and I'll find out from council what our rights are. And I know the assessors have the right to periodically inspect, I know the Board of Health does. I think that it's, you know, a systematic approach is certainly going to serve us well whenever anybody fights back than somebody claiming it's selective enforcement on them. So it seems like something worth looking into, but traditionally building inspectors do not see the zoning enforcement as 50% of their job. I do, but most building inspectors do not. And so we ought to meet with Mr. Delory. I happen to know that his daughter's getting married in the next few weeks, so let's put this to 2 meetings out so he can be through the wedding he's having at his house.
What do you think would be a good date for bringing this back? 2 weeks or 4 weeks? Let's put it that way.
6.
I'd like to go sometime in the beginning of September, because I just don't know what his wedding date is, but every time he's been in the office, I've been hearing a little bit about the wedding preparations and such, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
About our first meeting is
Okay,
First meeting in September.
Tuesday the
First
second,
meeting
because the
in-
first is Labor Day.
What's that again?
I think our first meeting in September would be September 2nd, because I believe Labor Day is actually September 1st, so you have to meet on the Tuesday. August meetings are the 4th and
Okay.
18th.
Done. Is there a motion to
motion
adjourn?
to adjourn.
It was seconded and moved before.
No, and I interrupted.
No, she said she moved to,
Yeah,
once she was
second.
done, no one seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.